Hello everybody, this is Jerry Alt, and I'm bringing you another tutorial in Photoshop and Lightroom for how to create some action in your photos. You can see here we're during the coronavirus lockdown, so kind of bored in the studio, and I went out to get a few things today and found this popcorn bowl for sale at the Dollar Tree. So what I did is I made some popcorn, put it inside this container, and I'll be honest with you, it's microwave popcorn. It wouldn't have filled the bowl, so I've got some craft paper underneath there, but I wanted my base picture, my bowl, to be nice and full. So I set it up with a couple of strobes, and as I go through here, I'm going to show you that I took different photos with a remote on my camera as I dropped popcorn back into the bowl. And you can see there's a variety of shots here, my arms in some of them. So what we're going to do today is take that initial picture and we're going to add some action to it. Now the trick here is to go through your selected shots, and I probably took 40 shots, but I've selected 11 here that have some kind of action, and I highlighted all of them. And then I went to my photo edit in, but instead of just opening this in Photoshop, I'd have to open this 11 different times. If you go down to the bottom, you can see open as layers in Photoshop. And that's what I ended up doing. Now, to make it easier for everybody, I've already opened those layers because otherwise we'd be waiting. So as you see here, I've got 11 different layers. Each one represents a different photo from inside of Photoshop, inside of Lightroom. The first thing I'm going to do is take all of the so-called action layers and leave only the base layer visible. So this is where I started from. This is before I started dropping popcorn from above the scene down toward the bowl. Now, there's different ways you could have done this. I could have shaken the bowl, bounced it on the table, gotten some action that way. But when you freeze action, people don't know whether it's going up or going down. It's a little bit different with droplets of water because you're looking for a natural direction. Drops are going to be bigger at the bottom than they are at the top because of the natural effect of gravity. But here we're using popcorn. It's not going to change shape. So I take this first layer, and I'm going to come back and clean up the rest of this surface later. You can see it's just a little off of square, but it isn't bad. It's not going to end up mattering. So here's how you add that popcorn. See, if I take one of these layers above it, well, now it's covered everything under it. So then I grab another one, and it's covered everything under it. So the trick here is to just take the information you need out of each layer. So I'm going to select the layer above it. I'm going to use, in this case, my patch tool, but you could use a lasso. It doesn't really matter. I'm going to grab around these kernels, and then I'm going to hit Command-C for copy and Command-V for paste. Now, if you look down here, what it's done is created a layer that just contains what I selected. So I'm going to delete the underlying layer, and now I have my bottom and some kernels above it. So if you can see where we're going with this. Now what I'm going to do, because I don't want any artifacts of the selection area, is I'm going to change the screen mode on this from normal to screen. When you do that, only the lighter parts of the image will show through. All right, now we're going to go and do this again. I want to see if it's different. Yes, there's enough different there to grab, so I'm just going to grab some of the, oops, let's delete that. Try to actually get them. You can see my arms in there, but it's not going to matter in the final picture. Command-C, Command-V, and now I've added those. If you take a look here, I've got a little bit. You can see that when I made this new selection, some of that popcorn underneath wasn't showing, but that's okay for right now. Go to the one above, see if there's anything new. Yeah, there's some popcorn off to the side that I'd like to pick up. So I'm going to Do the same thing with this one. I don't think I need the popcorn at the top, but just in case. And again, I'm going to change this to screen mode. Forgot to do it with the last one, so I'm going to go back and grab that last one. I'm going to change that to screen mode. You can come back and check these after you're done and see. But as you can tell here, we're starting to build up a little bit of action above our bowl. Now there's a couple right here that would be filling in the open spot. So that's great. We're going to Command C, Command V. When I delete the underlying layer, you see we're starting to fill this in nicely. So we're going to do a couple more here. Here's a few pieces off to the right side. That's good. So we're going to grab those. Probably don't need this one. It's not going to add a whole lot to what we're doing. There's already some pieces there. So Command C, Command V. And now we're starting to fill in. Now you can see that, again, if you see when I click this on and off, it's covering up part of the popcorn underneath. That's because I have to change it to screen mode. When I change it to screen mode, you see that the underlying image comes through. So that's why it's important to do these as we go along, so that nothing that's underneath it is covered up. See if we got any more here. It's a couple of big pieces in the middle. There might be some overlap there, but that's okay. Do the same thing with this one. Unclick the underlying layer and change this to screen mode as well. And now we've got a little bit of natural overlap of these pieces, as you see, which could happen. This has not much, just a little piece here off to the left, so I'll tell you what I'm going to do here is just grab this one. I don't care about what's on the ground. I'm not going to keep that anyway. Command C, Command V. Change this to screen mode. And then we get that back. And let's see here if we got anything else I care about. That one's kind of hidden. That's not going to do us any particular good. There's a couple of pieces, but again, they're not going to do us a lot of good. So what I'm going to do now is I've got a bunch of layers that I'm not using anymore. So I'm going to select these just because I like to keep things clean. And I'm going to delete those. Yes. Do the same thing with the other ones that I'm not using. Delete those layers. And now what I'm left with is the original popcorn bowl and a variety of popcorn flying in and around it. And again, the bottom wasn't going to matter so much because I really don't like that tabletop with the shadows flying in different directions. So at this point, I just want to see if there's anything in here. Nope, that one's fine. That one's fine. Just checking to see if there's any that are obscuring anything under it that I might want to fix. So far it's been nice and clean. That one kind of three-dimensional. I like that at the top. And again, okay. There's not much going on there that I really care about. So this is good. All right, so the last thing I'm going to do is to make these a group, and I select all those layers and hit Command G, and that makes it a group. And I'm just going to call this kernels. Just for organization's sake, I hate having a bunch of extra layers there when I am trying to work. Now, I would like to clean up the underlying image. So I'm going to select the layers. I could do curves, but I'm sorry, levels, adjustment layer. Just went down here at the bottom where the different adjustment layers are and picked levels. So with this levels set, I can adjust the white balance. And I kind of don't like that, the way it's affecting everything. You see how it's making those, it's not doing anything to the kernels in the air, right? But it is affecting what was in that bottom layer, which was the kernels in the bucket. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to adjust that up a little bit. That looks pretty good. Again, I'm going to crop off a bunch of this down here so I don't care so much. But what I'm going to do is invert this by clicking on the mask portion and hitting Command I. That turns this into a hidden selection. Then I'm going to grab my paintbrush, and keep in mind that when you're painting on a mask, black conceals, white reveals. So I've concealed everything by making the mask black, and now I can just, whoops, I was using black. I need to change this. When you've got the black and white, if for some reason it's not showing, click on the defaults right above it, and that will turn in black and white. And if you want to switch from black and white, just hit the X key on your keyboard and it'll switch them back and forth. So I want to reveal part of this, so I'm going to do this, and I think that's a little too much. I'm not thrilled by how much I've got there, so I've got a choice. I could go back and use a flow of less than 100, or I could just decrease the opacity, and that'll do it too. Now, you may have noticed that I was a little sloppy right up here. No problem. Just make my brush a little bit smaller. Left and right bracket keys will make it bigger and smaller. I'm going to switch the color back to black, and I'm just going to paint this back in. And again, I'm at 100%. It's starting to look a little freaky on me, so what I'm going to do here, let me reverse that, is take my flow down to a lesser number, because that way I can use something less and kind of build it up. The other thing I realized, part of my problem, is I had a hard brush. So I'm going to switch to a soft brush, zero hardness on the brush. Now I'm going to come back, and what that's going to do is eliminate those edges that I was worried about, because I could see a border where I'd been selecting. All right, so now by doing that, I've got this nice and cleaned up. I'm just going to go over that a little bit where I had hit it. That looks pretty good. And we're just about done. The only other thing I would add to this is probably a crop. You could crop back in Lightroom, or you can go ahead and crop here. I'm going to, yep, let's see what I did. Yep, there we go. I want to make sure I was selecting the right thing. And I'm going to rotate this a little bit because it was a little crooked. Try to line up along the bottom. And now I'll accept that crop. And there we go. We got a bucket of popcorn with a little bit of jazz. All right, hope you enjoyed this. Now you'd save that out. You can do your final tuning back in Lightroom. But hopefully you enjoyed this tip. If you have any questions, you can certainly reach out to me. If you like this, please click the thumbs up button, and I'd love if you would subscribe to my channel. Thank you.